from the MCPLive.tv studios, located in downtown Conroe, it's the Conroe Art League, live.
Hello and welcome to Cal Live, the show that brings you what you need to know about the Conroe Art League. We're here to introduce you to each of our artists one by one, who are the Cal members, so that you can learn more about their stories, about these talented artists, and the beautiful work that they create. My name is Marilyn Lowry, and I am delighted to be your host today. I've been a longtime member of the Conroe Art League, and my guest today is the lovely Jennifer Claussen. Jennifer, welcome. We're so glad to have you here today.
Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation.
All right. Well, we just are going to jump right in and see if we can find some information out about you and your work. So let's start with talking a little bit about you. Where are you from? What, when you grew up, what was in your mind about art, if anything? And something about your family, maybe?
Sure, yeah. I grew up in the Houston area, essentially Sugar Land, most of my childhood and into, I guess, somewhat adulthood there. I began university in Austin and then transferred to Houston and finished out my career there. And I guess after undergraduate, I had known my husband since middle school, but we didn't date until college. And so after we were married, his job was up here in the Woodlands. And so we moved up to the area maybe 18 years ago or so. And found some property between the Woodlands and Conroe. And we really haven't moved. We never had children, and so no need to grow the house or grow the family. And
perfect.
We loved it and can't really think of any other place to live. So we've called it home.
So did you guys, did you build your house there?
No, we didn't.
Oh.
Our plans were to, and then, at the time we said, well, it's our first home. What are we really going to know about planning a house? As creative as I was thinking about the layout, we decided against it, and we're happy we did.
That sounds perfect. And that you've been there all this time and you've made it work?
I have, yes.
That's great.
And in fact, I've taken one of the bedrooms and converted it into my studio. And then we have a workshop out back, and that's where I do some of my woodworking and portion of the sculptures.
That's really, really cool. Yes. So you said you had a kiln in your garage, so you have a fully equipped studio.
That's right. Parts and pieces everywhere, and I try to keep it organized.
I love that. Oh, yes. And that's probably the biggest challenge of all. When you have a lot of different parts to what it is that you're doing, I know that, that can be complicated. So as a child, did you always like doing art or,
Ever since I can remember, it was just a part of me and something I was always drawn to. And I know, my maiden name was Quiroga, and one of my first love artists was Van Gogh. And I guess the Dutch say it Gogh, but as I recall learning the name, it was Gogh. And so I changed my last name to Jennifer Claussen.
I love it.
Yeah,
oh my
it
goodness.
was my own way to keep telling myself I am an artist.
How beautiful. How beautiful. And you figured that one out yourself.
I suppose so. And the fun fact is my signature is still my maiden name. I just have a C after it because my married name is Claussen. And so that kind of delineates the time of the work that was created before I was married and the work that was created after.
That's beautiful. To be able to marry both of those parts. I've been trying to figure out how to do that with my signature. That's a really good idea. So how do you spell Quiroga?
Quiroga is Quiroga.
Okay. That's fascinating. And so you really admired Van Gogh's work.
Right.
Okay. I never was able to say it probably the right way either, but that is so cool. And you drew, you said when you were a child, you liked doing all that. But then the woodworking has come into it too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I have influence from my grandparents along the way. My mother's mother was, I guess both of my mother's parents were in the couture. So my mother's mother made wedding gowns and
Wow.
bridesmaids' dresses. I believe she even designed some of the athletic gear for the Mexico Olympic team in the early 80s.
Wow.
And my mother's father was a suit tailor, and they were both dedicated to that, until the end of their lives, it seemed like, quite a few decades. And my father's father and mother worked to build furniture, and were carpenters. of sorts.
Carpentry.
Yes.
Well, all kinds of creative, different ways of creating that these folks had. So you definitely were destined.
Oh yes, I had the
creative.
bug.
You definitely did. And being for your mother to be involved in all of the sewing and everything, no wonder you always look so pretty. So she always has such beautiful outfits on. So, yes, and you've kind of had the woodwork part. I like that too, because that's influenced what you've done with your art as well, I know.
Certainly.
Exactly. So tell me, is there anybody in particular that you studied with, or that you that inspired you to do the kind of work that you do?
I wouldn't say there's one particular person. I'm appreciative of being able to go down the wormhole on Instagram and find different artists and see what they're up to and see what drives them. And I just look inward towards my passion, and I would say my strongest passion is man's struggle with nature and how to appreciate that. And in a world where there's such denial about it going away and it becoming obsolete, and so
Exactly.
I feel it's so important to keep that in the forefront.
It is very important, and I see that in your artwork. And obviously where you're living, you know, it's always forests and water has always been a draw for me as well. And a lot, you know, you see so much building going on, and you know that's progress, and it needs to happen for people to have homes, but still we want to be able to maintain our forested space so that we can breathe.
Yes, for sure. I think it gives so much vitality to us. I think emotional and physical, for us to be out in nature and experience it is so much more enriching than we give it credit for. And when we live in a place north of Houston that is so wooded, I think we're blessed even more to be surrounded by it. And it's not till you go to other areas where you realize we have something real unique. And I love looking out the window in the morning while drinking my hot tea and seeing, you know, the trees and the birds and all the wildlife. And I just would like everyone else to enjoy the same thing.
Exactly.
In fact, I am seeking out nonprofit organizations that do protect and give back to our natural lands. And so my plan is to give 10% of my artwork sold through myself, not through galleries, to these organizations to help benefit those natural places.
I think that's a great way to do that. And so, since we're talking to folks out here, I guess if there's somebody out there who has something in mind like that, they'll know at the end of the broadcast how to get in touch with you and let you know.
Yes, I'd love to hear from them.
Exactly. That would be great. And I'm glad that you have the enthusiasm and the desire and to include this particular part of our lives in your artwork, because giving back is so important. We get so much, and to be able to share that, it's fabulous. So about how long have you been involved with the Conroe Art League now, Jennifer?
I believe it's been somewhere around 2.5 years or so.
Okay.
I'd like to say longer, but maybe I didn't quite take the jump and do the membership until 2.5 years ago or so.
Well, you've done a lot of other things, though, before you got into art full-time as it can be for you right now. So why don't you tell me about your work history? What else have you done?
Well, sure. Being in the Houston area, I worked in the oil and gas industry, and at some point in time, I realized there was a little something itching that I needed to scratch, and so I saw that the Waterway Arts Festival has an emerging artist category, and so they open that up to any new or starting out artists, and they assign you a mentor, and they lower your booth fee because they know you're new at this, and they just allow you a lot of opportunity and openness to follow your path and your journey. And so while I had a full-time job, I committed myself to creating several pieces, and I did that for I guess I did that show twice in that category, and I just was the jumping off point to where I started to work part-time and try to find ways to have art being a full-time job more of a reality.
Create, and more real time for that. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I think that's wonderful that they do that, and I'm so glad that you took advantage of that, because sometimes we just need that little boost. It's like ooh, can we do this really? And but you could see that once you got connected, and the fact that you had a mentor, for that probably gave you a boost as well.
Sure.
And that has kind of led into some of the things that you've done for the Conroe Art League as well. So tell us about what your idea was and how you contributed to the Art League with your...
Well, so in my transition of going from, maybe corporate America to becoming a full-time artist, I really wanted to dive into the business side of art, which you're never really taught about along the way. And
no, you're not.
And people tend to know that artists aren't business salespeople, and so my idea was to get together with a community of artists, which Conroe Art League was very supportive of me gathering a group, and Deborah Riley and Brenda McNougal kind of helped me along the way assemble the
organizational tools for it,
get
it started.
And the masterminds group, and so the idea was to bring a community of artists together and go over art books that went over business topics, go over social media and things that people were struggling with, and just offer good advice and see what was working for one person or wasn't working for another person, and feed off of each other. And luckily I've been speaking with Brenda lately, and she wants to start the group back up here in January. And during that portion, we will try to speak more in depth to more professional artists and find out what ticks for them, what works for them, and what their advice could be.
I think that's marvelous to be able to do that, and I think that's something, a piece that's missing for a lot of artists, and a lot of us avoid it.
Oh yes,
because we don't really want to do that. It's like it's hard for many artists to. Most artists are pretty introverted, and they like working solitarily, and they like to share their work with other artists, but they're maybe not as confident as they could be in sharing it with the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also the technology that's involved. Many of us have not been exposed to as much technology as some of the younger folks that are coming into the world now have. And so we're kind of back at ground zero, so to speak, with a lot of our techniques. And so I was a part of your group this
Yes.
last year, and kind of COVID kind of got us like everything. But we did stay on as long as we could and tried to, once a week or once every 2 weeks, get together and at least chat with the other artists and see where they were. And I think we worked on our artist statements and resumes and those kinds of things that we probably needed to either do if we hadn't done it, or tweak so that it would be better for what we're doing.
Yes, certainly. What we found is when you think of all the things you need to accomplish to make that business work, it's overwhelming.
It
and
is.
so if we split it up into a week or 2 weeks, whatever it was, we were able to take on those tasks and see where people were struggling with that.
Right.
And if we needed a helping hand, we were able to ask it from someone else in the group. And so it's been quite eye-opening. And I think as artists, our vision and our passions are always changing and evolving, and so it is important to revisit those artist statements and those bios.
It is. Things change.
Mhm.
That's exactly right. And so we do need to keep it current.
Yes.
And we also, I think one thing that helped too is that I always do better when I have a deadline. And it was like, okay, by next Monday, everybody's going to have an artist statement written and we're going to read them to one another. It's like,
Yes, accountability is great.
That's right. And so we shared them, and it was very helpful.
Mhm.
And I think it kind of helps you get out of your comfort zone a little bit, as long as you've got this supportive group.
Yes.
And that gives you your opening so that you can get into your elevator speech and whatever you need to do in order to share that information with the public.
You have to start somewhere.
You
so
do.
Might
You
as
do.
well be a group of
Supportive people.
Supportive artists, yes.
That's exactly right. So it worked really well, and I'm glad to hear that it's going to start again in January. That's great. And I know you exhibit at the Art League, and
I do.
monthly, and you
I-
docent, so
Certainly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a pleasure to dose, and especially when you have new guests coming into the gallery that
Yes.
say, "This is the first gallery I have ever been in." And one thing Conroe Art League does like to advocate is our doors are open. We're not pretentious. Please stop by. We don't expect anything from you. Enjoy your time there, and if you like, have a sandwich in the garden. Inside.
it's an open place. It
Mhm.
really is. And there's no pressure, and people love having you in there. Once people come in, I've seen people hesitate. Sometimes it's like, I don't know, if I go in there, are they going to make me buy something? Or
Right.
what if I don't know anything about art? And
Am
I'm
I
gonna go in there?
dressed right?
That's right, exactly. So we try to make it a friendly place for
Yes.
people to go. So we hope you do show up and tell us a little bit too now about do you have another project going on now with the Art League? That's cool.
I do. I'm very excited about this project. Randall Cade had approached me. I guess we're kind of outdoor enthusiasts and like a lot of physical activity. And so he had been part of the Woodlands Cycling Month, I believe it was called.
Mhm.
And in that month, they try to create different activities around the woodlands to get people out of their cars and onto their bikes and using the bike paths. And so one of the ideas that they had done with that group is a tour in the woodlands. You ride your bike, and we take you along a route. And not only do you get to see several of the sculptures in the woodlands, but all of the art benches that have been popping up. Well, maybe not all of them, because that would be a really long route. But
Yes.
we have different routes planned out, and we hope to be doing that here, if we're lucky, mid-December or something like
How
that.
fun.
Yes.
How fun is that? Yeah, and so you'll break it up and you'll have other times, besides the one in December, hopefully, once you can kind of get a little group together that likes to do that.
That's
Oh,
right.
yes, that's a wonderful idea.
Yes.
And help people really enjoy all this outdoors that we have so much of. It's so beautiful up here, too. That's awesome. Well, okay, let's take a look at your work.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. Ooh, look at these pieces on here. Aren't they gorgeous?
So these are the works that I created. They're considered my Light Fire Creation series. And light because photography comes from light, and fire because it's fired in a kiln. And so these are images that I have taken and fired them into the glaze of these ceramic pieces. And so when I was an early professional, my work went from a figurative sculpture in clay to more of a contemporary form that would allow for my photographs and images. And because I could not travel with my sculptures, part of my art would be photography, and so I have quite a large collection of photography, but I didn't want to take the name of photographer. It was important for me to create and get my hands dirty and either pound them into clay or sandwood or something like that. And so these is the first series that I really delve into, that I showed at the Waterway Arts Festival, and I still do some work with. Now I will be integrating these sorts of styles with the wood and other materials that I have going on.
Oh, that's great. So you've married your images along with your ceramic and your pottery, your clay, and I see your natural influence in all of that.
Yes.
The environment, those earthy tones.
That is true, yes.
I
As much
feel
as I
that.
love Van Gogh's bright colors, to me, just kind of the serene, simple colors always ended up coming out of me, no matter what.
I do understand that. I do, and your images too of like the shells and the, all of those things. It just all works together so beautifully.
Yes.
I really like it, and they make me feel like I want to touch them.
Yes. So that Seaside Trio will actually be available during Craft Week.
Good.
At the Conroe Art League
And
Gallery.
that's the week of Thanksgiving.
Yes, I believe the 21st is Monday, and it'll go on through
Sunday.
Sunday. Yes.
Actually, yes, because there's like a little, I think, a reception or something at the end of the.
That sounds about right.
Together, right? Okay, so let's have a look at your second piece. Oh wow, love that.
So this piece is called Introspection, and it does dive into man's relationship with nature. And so as where once this is a decaying piece of a tree, I kind of refurbished it and kind of made sure to use oils to preserve it at its current state. And what's interesting is the center of the log is almost like the lightning had been struck through it, because it's almost petrified.
Right.
And then what I did inside there is put a cityscape. And the cityscape is made of about 4 layers of material. One is an acrylic glass. The other is made of steel that has been blued. The other is steel that has been rusted, and yet the other is thin plywood. And these were laser cut. Although I'm good with Photoshop and those sorts of programs,
Right.
My husband is the one that was able to tell me, well, for these to be cut by a laser machine, you're going to need to know a little bit about CAD and AutoCAD. And so
Oh, wow.
I did have to do a little bit of learning and tracing in those programs to get this to work. But the different layers of the city do stand for the aging of a city and how construction was initially just lumber, and then over time it's been all of these other materials, and how does that mix into the landscape with nature, and are we protecting it at the same time as we're doing the construction?
I love that. I really do. That's a beautiful, beautiful explanation. And there's so much to it.
Yes.
Yes, I
There
think
is.
it's really
I think
nice.
not until you see the piece, which please come by the gallery and see it. It's on display this
There
month.
now.
Uh-huh.
All right.
That's correct.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. Okay, so let's take a look at your other piece. Ooh, that's interesting.
Yes, this is a life of its own, and it is also. I decided to kind of deconstruct these branches and then recreate them with something man-made. And so in between you will find a steel rod that
Okay.
that I use to prop up the next piece. And in between the pieces there is a mimicking going on of the material on the outside of what I believe is birch branches. And so you'll see this material at the bottom of the sculpture just fade out and leak onto what would be, either a countertop or a pedestal or whatever it may be. But it's just kind of, when you see nature growing beneath the cracks or through stop signs or in places you wouldn't expect, and I feel like nature is so strong and powerful, and I just hope it wins the fight.
I agree. Me too. You see those little cracks with those little flowers and
That's right.
things coming out. It's like, okay, I don't want to cut any of that out. Let's leave that there. It's beautiful. So no, that's a very fascinating piece and a great story about it. You've got to be able to. I hope these folks will come when you're there so they can listen to you tell about what the meaning is to you and how all of these pieces have come together, because you've obviously put a lot of thought into the combination that's there. It's not just a piece of something, but it's, a marrying of a lot of different things. And you have so many talents. I'm so amazed at all the different things that you've done and also how you've been able to incorporate all of those together. So do you have any current projects, things that you're working on right now? Is there anything?
I do. In fact, I was hoping to have them ready for this interview, but time is not on my side. So one of the pieces is a triptych, and it kind of has one of the same slices of wood as found in the introspection piece, but they're thinner cuts, and they are actually almost a story about immigration, which I've never even considered the subject, but I guess it's in the media so much it can't help but affect you, and so that's an interesting piece that combines just ceramic and wood, and they kind of contrast each other. Some of the most interesting things I find about natural woods are the colors and the textures and the life that it takes on, and or the creatures that have tried to survive in it. And so maybe that has to do with the immigration portion of it and struggle.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
I love that. You really think through your pieces so carefully, Jennifer. I'm so impressed. I am, because it's like not that people don't set out to try to do something with a thought process, but some people do think it through in a little more depth than others do. Some let things sort of evolve and they kind of come to them as they go. I'm kind of more like that. I start out and things kind of evolve. But I can tell that you are a very thoughtful person, and that you're, maybe it might take a little different tack as it moves, but most of the thought of what it's going to be, I think you have it. You already have it in mind. It sounds that way. Is that right?
I think my pieces start by being in love with a piece of wood that I see.
Uh-huh.
And I will leave it in the corner of a room until it really begins to tell me a story. So there's a bit of patience there, and then it slowly starts creeping in, and that's when it's fun to attack it, and then you get scared that you've gone too far, or you're taking a slice and you'll never get it back again. So, it's a journey.
It is a journey, but I think that's a great idea too, because a lot of times there's some fear that comes into it about, what am I going to destroy here? Mm-hmm. Am I going to tear something apart that I really want to make something special from? But I think giving yourself a chance to kind of bond with that material is a great idea, because I know sometimes when I'm doing my work, I'll put it aside, put it over, on a stand or something if I've started on it. And I think maybe I'm through, maybe not, I don't know. And just kind of wait until I just really connect with it more. Yeah. And then I might see that there are places that things need to be changed. But I think in a way that's that same thing of bonding with the object that it is that you're working with. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you can't fight it. You really have to. It is kind of a relationship. So
it is.
Maybe that's why it's so hard to part with it sometimes later.
It is. It's just part of you. So, well, Jennifer, this is great. Let's talk about where people can view your work if they want to see more of it and want to know more about you.
Sure. Most of my works are on view at my website, Jennifer, Jennifer, Claussen, Claussen.com. Mm-hmm. And my Instagram account is Jennifer_Claussen. Mm-hmm. And so you can see what I'm up to, see my works, and I hope to be displaying art here at the gallery next month in December. Have a mini show in February. Ooh. And I actually have a series called Uncoopering. So cooperage is...
That's right. Let's be sure we let them know about that. The barrels.
Cooperage is the art of making wine barrels. And so I have deconstructed wine barrels and created sculptures. And that art should be on display here locally soon. So you'll have to look at my feed to find out dates and locations.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so exciting. Deconstructing, but making something else out of that. It's kind of almost like repurposing, but in a little different creative way. Yeah. So that sounds great, Jennifer. We really appreciate your being here and sharing all this. And we hope that you will visit the Conroe Art League to see Jennifer's work along with the other artists that are there. And visit us at what we call the Best Little Art Gallery in historic downtown Conroe. We're at 127 Simonton Street, and we're open Tuesday through Saturday from 11 until 4. So y'all come on down and see us at the gallery where we live by our creed. Create, appreciate, and learn. Have a great one, and thanks for being here.